Marlowe here. I'm Breitbart News Editor-in-Chief with my good friend Ann Coulter. Ann, so great for you to make the time to talk to us today. I feel like I have to remind people that they're going to be hearing this most likely in November of 2018, not 15, not 16. But lo and behold, Ann, our border is wide open. Absolute chaos has taken place. We're seeing record levels of illegal immigration. And I don't know what more you and I can do or say, but we will attempt to say more in this segment.
Yes, it is getting to the point where you just want to say, we did our best. We had one shot. I mean, I will say, I thought it was over the night Romney lost. He was the best on immigration until a miracle struck and Trump came along. But, you know, to save the country, Trump would have had to keep his promises, build a wall immediately. He should have skipped the inaugural parade. Been meeting with rebar guys to start the wall right away. He's commander-in-chief. We have troops dying in other countries defending them. But apparently the political class, including Donald Trump, thinks that the commander-in-chief has absolutely no authority to defend Americans on American soil. And how about that executive order on anchor babies? Yep, that should have been signed first day in office. We got promises of it right before the 2018 midterm elections. I keep hearing Trump's, I guess, what is it, about 50% of the 48% of the vote he got is doesn't matter what he does. He could govern like Hillary Clinton. He could govern like Karl Marx. And, well, he sends those great tweets. He's trying. Okay, I keep hearing he's trying. Is his hands tired? He can't sign the executive order on anchor babies? Again, should have been done the day he came into office. And instead of going around praising dreamers as these incredible kids, he should have kept his promise that he would deport them as fast as your head can spin. He didn't do that, so now it's just I have very little hope for the country, and I mean it's going to be bad. It'll be Brazil first. We're about to lose Texas and Florida. Those elections were razor thin, and every day, more and more immigrants turn 18 and start voting, canceling out all of your votes. It's about 5 more years. Trump will be the last Republican president. Yeah, you think, oh, well, you may get another Supreme Court nomination. That'll save us. No, Democrats, as we saw from this last election, they can't wait 10 years for demographics to change things. They have to invent a Russia conspiracy. They're so upset about this brief interregnum with Donald Trump. No, they will not wait. Why even fight the Florida or Georgia elections? The whole country will be yours moments from now. No, we can't wait. So I assume they'll pack the court. It won't matter how many. Trump could replace 4 Supreme Court justices, and President Beto or President Kamala will come in and say, hey, I think we need 4 more justices on the Supreme Court.
And I like the theory that the problem is that Trump is nursing calluses on his thumbs from doing too much tweeting, like from too much thumb typing. Like I think that's really, we're going to lose the whole republic over that. Yeah, but you're correct, of course. And I had the same viewpoint that he should have began on immigration on day one because these things are complicated.
That was his promise.
That was his promise, and that was the one where, I mean, it's going to be so hard to make the case for him if there's no wall come 2020. And I think the Democrats are probably going to nominate someone pretty bad, and so there's a chance Republicans win again. But you are correct.
No, there isn't.
Okay, so
he barely won the last election. I mean, it was very exciting. It was great. Everybody remembers election night. You always have this feeling that we're invincible and you guys, you're losers, you lost. It was really close. You switch 80,000 votes, mostly in the industrial Midwest. And he loses. And I told him directly during the transition, if you don't keep your promises, you run the exact same election 4 years from now, and just through the process of immigrants turning 18 and block voting for the Democrats, you lose the exact same election.
Okay, so I want to talk about this demographic bomb that we're about to lose. Pretty much the entire voter base of the Republican Party is just getting older, and the Democrats are importing new generations of voters, and this is coming, and no one's taken this seriously. Mark Stein's been writing about this forever. You've been writing about it forever. I mean, you don't even need a hardcore right-winger to be able to identify that this is happening. It's clearly part of the design,
Democrats brag about it.
They brag about it,
on
right?
some idiot MSNBC show. There, anything Maya Angelou says must be treated like, it's from Sophocles, and the sky is blue. Oh, wow! Let's get that on a needlepoint pillow. But her statement was, when people tell you something about themselves, you should believe them. In fact, in general, I think it's exactly the opposite. If people have to tell you, I'm smart, they're usually not. You wouldn't have to say so otherwise. But be that as it may, this is something Democrats have been bragging about for decades. You had what's his name, Patrick Reddy, who worked for Teddy Kennedy, I believe, but big Democratic consultant, 20 years ago said the Kennedy family's greatest gift to America was the 1965 Immigration Act. In a few decades, Republicans won't be able to win. You had that guy Roy Teixeira down in Texas, who's written a lot about politics. For 20 years he's been saying it's George McGovern's revenge. It's immigrants combined with traditional American liberals. That's what got Obama elected. They've been bragging about, we changed the demographics, and idiot Republicans are running around, arguing about the Import-Export Bank or even abortion. Look, abortion is important. You lose everything, conservatives, whatever you think is the most important issue, gun rights, abortion, anything the Supreme Court does, anything the Congress does, if you never have another Republican president, nor, I might add, another Republican Senate or House. I mean, the demographics that flip Texas and California, have already flipped California, are about to flip Texas and Florida and various other states, smaller states. That applies to the House and Senate races, too. We're just at the point of extinction without a shot. While you and I go out and an election is coming up, I'll study up on the issues. I'll read magazines. I'll talk to my educated friends. I'll watch the candidate debates. All of our votes are being canceled out by immigrants, 80% of whom block vote for the Democrats.
Yeah, and I mentioned this to people that I think there are 50 million people in the country now who don't speak English primarily in the home. The number might be higher. And, Breitbart, we publish a fraction of our content in Spanish, but virtually all of it is in English. Very little of it is in Spanish. We don't have Spanish radio broadcasts. And it's one of these things where people do not see the ticking clock here that's happening, which is that the right is not reaching these voters at all to give them anything to consider, much less and that's even after we ignore the fact that they're by default going to vote for Democrat almost all the time, even with full information. The right isn't even giving them the information, and part of it is because the consultant class and the establishment class and the donor class kind of digs it. They love the cheap labor. They're not looking 20, 30 years down the road. They're looking to their next paycheck and their next quarterly stock report.
Yes, and the consultants, probably Democratic consultants too, but they don't seem quite as greedy, self-interested, and nation-hating as the Republican consultants do. They give bad advice.
Yeah, it's pretty consistently bad advice, and yet people still take them because they've got the cash. And the problem that I'm seeing here, which is that, and we've already lost so much ground, so much time, is that a lot of people call in the show, and there are people I'm sure listening right now who are fuming because they think it's Congress's fault and the Republican establishment's fault because no one even wants to see anything done on immigration. But ultimately, I'm of the mind that I'm not probably quite as hardcore as you, Ann, but I'm pretty much right there with you that the buck does stop here. Ultimately, it's up to Donald Trump to get something done, even if, look, he signed up for the gig. This was the gig. He was going to have to deal with this issue. This is his signature promise, and we're basically nowhere in the first 2 years. And if something doesn't get addressed in the short term, I don't see how we can be positive on this subject.
No, I'll tell you right now. He promised when he signed the last omnibus, because he wanted to spend the weekend at Mar-a-Lago, a bill that prohibited him from putting so much as 1 yard of fence on the border. Prohibited him, at least purported to. I don't think it would hold up in court. He's the commander-in-chief. It would be like Congress passing a law saying, I don't know, you can't give our troops guns. Oh, which, by the way, our troops at the border do not have. And you know, there was quite understandable rage over Trump just signing the bill and flying off to Mar-a-Lago, and he gave that statement, I will never sign a bill that doesn't have wall funding again. Okay, could you ask your callers to start making bets with me on whether he's going to sign an omnibus with wall funding? Because I could use some money.
Yeah, and this is the happy talk that I don't think is productive at this point, because we saw the way the midterms went, and I heard the same happy talk that everything will be okay in the midterms, and it was not okay in the midterms. Republicans lost a lot of ground in the House. They did fine in the Senate because the map looked good. It wasn't
right. There was
bad.
No chance they were not going to do well, and
Right.
I might add at this point, that's another little trick that's being pulled. Yeah, okay, we saved the Senate. The math was absolutely disastrous for the Democrats. They had an enormous number of seats up. And we had like 4 seats up, mostly in really solid red states, in the Senate, that is. And this is why it's kind of a trick when you will hear on the liberal stations and liberal talking points that Democrats got 9 million more votes than Republicans in the midterm elections, and yet we didn't take the Senate. Well, yeah, there are more Democrat votes because there were more Democrats running. In a blue state where a Democrat is going to win, yeah, you're going to have a lot more Democrats coming out to vote for the sure winner than, I mean, look at California alone. You know a lot of people in California. I know a lot of people in California. They're as politically active as you and I are. And no, they don't vote. What's the point? All it does is get you called for jury duty.
Yeah, that is what I'm trying to identify for folks, and Ann Coulter again is with me, and all of her books are a must read. Is there one, Ann, you would like people to pick up particularly right now?
Adios America is,
that seems like the one.
Is never going out of style. I mean, in Trump we trust. It is what we hoped from him. The coarseness, the bragging, the vulgarity, all of that was weirdly a selling point. We've been betrayed so many times by your standard politicians who make promises on immigration and then always betray us. The fact that Trump was something totally different, not really wild about the personal style, but that made it believable that this guy would be a bull in a china shop and would actually get it done. Nope. All we ended up with was the coarseness and the vulgarity.
Yeah, and that's the thing about the tweeting, which I'm not into anymore, which I used to love the tweet.
I 100% agree with you.
Yeah, and I feel like I still enjoy it. It's still funny. Sometimes he fires off a good one and it's something cutting, but it
enrages me.
Yeah, it's not the point now. Now it's time. We got to put their foot on the gas. It sounds like you're already gone here at this point, but I feel like we do have a window here to get something done on immigration, perhaps something on infrastructure.
We do. I just don't think he's going to do it.
Well, that's the
Laugh
problem
at me.
that I'm
Call
trying.
me wrong if it doesn't happen. But, give up on the 3D chess if Ann is right, that everything gets signed. And, there will be BS, as there always is. I will blame the RNC here. I'm being sort of Fox-like in being sure to blame anyone but the commander-in-chief with all the authority to do this stuff. But at those Trump rallies for the midterms, for them to be handing out pre-printed signs that say, finish the wall. Oh, you're just rubbing salt into the wound. How stupid do you think we are? He has not built 1 ounce, 1 inch of new wall. Again, the omnibus bill that he signed so he could go to Mar-a-Lago prohibited him from doing so. So they've rebuilt a few fences, repainted some. Knock it off with the finish the wall.
Okay, so and this is another one where, and I know that some of our audience would like more happy talk, but I typically refuse to give the happy talk on the show, and I've been vindicated, I think, pretty much every time. I've been negative here, unfortunately, because I happy talk the Senate because the Senate was a win. I did not happy talk the House, much to the audience's chagrin, and I was vindicated on that. But it's looking at these claims that the wall is being built. I mean, how did he get this talking point? I just find it so obviously the wall's not getting built, and so why would he start saying this? I don't even understand.
Well, the facts are not inconsistent with the argument that he is just a lying BSer. That's what I'm looking for. Something to get me to say, "Oh no, I see. He really meant it." Again, is his hands tired and he can't sign the executive order on anchor babies that should have been signed day one? Look, I think the happy talk is going to have to come, and it's not much happy talk. I mean, America is the greatest country in the world. It's the most only really successful democracy right now. And we're being overwhelmed all over. The people doing the overwhelming. There was an article on this judge, the Obama judge, who said that Trump can't exclude asylum seekers who I guess broke into the country illegally and who passed through another country, which is that is what the law says, both international law, which I know so impresses liberals, and domestic law. If you are applying for asylum, you have to do it in the first country you come to. Otherwise, it's pretty obvious you're not fleeing anything. You are going to someplace with generous welfare benefits. In any event, the Obama judge said, no, you can't do that. You have to let all the poor of the world in and serve their medical needs. New York Times article on this cited the groups behind the lawsuit: the ACLU, the Southern Poverty Law Center, the Center for Constitutional Rights. This is what you have to know about these groups and all of the ones cheering the third world peasants clamoring across our border. During the Cold War, when we were toe-to-toe with the Ruskies in nuclear war, these people would have been thrilled if the USSR had nuked America. They would have been thrilled. They hate this country. They have wanted to destroy this country forever. It used to be rooting for enemy powers like the old Soviet Union, which is why Reagan was the greatest president we've ever had, to defeat both domestic enemies and a very, very formidable foreign enemy. Soviet Union doesn't exist anymore. Little note to MSNBC: you don't have to keep being hysterical about Russia. It's just a normally corrupt country now. But these people now then in '65 they started doing it from within. We will just overwhelm America with every backward, dysfunctional culture, and there will be no more America. I think the only happy talk we're going to have going forward, I mean, you 3D chess types can cheer for Trump to get full wall funding or to just build the wall, since he has full constitutional authority to do so.
Okay, well, and this is what I want to ask you. I want about the legal element of this, which is that there's lots of talk. You know, he can't do anything without a judge blocking it. There is no.
That's such a whining excuse.
I'm not making it. It just appears to be. It appears to be how this administration is trying to deal with things. Is that they're not doing anything
is by manufacturing excuses. Yes, there will be a lawsuit. He's the commander-in-chief. He is 1/3 of the three branches of government. He is the equivalent of every federal judge, every Supreme Court justice, every bankruptcy judge. If all of that power were vested in one man, oh, that's the President of the United States. Number one, he doesn't have to listen to some pissant district court judge. Number two, you could at least try instead of just BSing us. Oh, I can't because the ACLU might sue. Yeah, they're going to sue over anything. Are they running our country? Number three,
apparently
you will
there are.
eventually win. And number four, take Texas. That's a big state with a lot of border on the Mexican running up against Mexico. 90% of Texas's border with Mexico is on private land. How is the ACLU going to sue over that? I promise you, those landowners would love a big, beautiful wall.
Yeah, and this is where...
They don't even have standing. They couldn't even begin to... They'd be thrown out. Or, okay, maybe you could find a district court judge in Hawaii, but it's a joke. I mean, he has to go back and face his fellow judges. Oh, yeah, I can sue to prevent a landowner from agreeing with the government to put a border wall on his private property. Moreover, as I've also suggested, if you're worried about the lawsuits, look, this is a conflict in the world. It's an emergency. As commander-in-chief, as so many presidents have done before, he could just go in, 2 yards into Mexico, build the wall right there. This is an emergency military response that we need right now. He's the commander-in-chief. How many Americans were threatened by grenaders when Ronald Reagan had the sneak attack, that magnificent attack on Grenada when he was president? What? Because some Marxists were moving in. I'm glad he did it. It was brilliant. It was manly. It was commander-in-chief like. But were Grenadians threatening to murder Americans? Were they coming into Florida and getting in drunk driving accidents, raping little girls, sneaking into homes, establishing Sharia law, running over Jews? No, they were not. And yet, the President of the United States, as Commander-in-Chief, decided to invade Grenada because that was a national security emergency, a conflict in the world we had to do something about. Our border is so much more of an emergency. The idea that the Commander-in-Chief could not just say, I'm going 10 yards in and we're building the wall there. So, okay, there are like 4 answers for you on, the ACLU will sue. My hand is tired. I can't sign the executive order.
So my point, the point I was trying to make is, if you know they're going to try to stop it, if you know that they're going to sue or whatever, or a judge is going to block it, then shouldn't you be doing something that can get around it? I mean, how are the judge isn't going to physically remove troops from the border if you put them there. I mean, so that's why you got to get them down there. How come that hasn't been done? The president's threatened it a million times. It seems so straightforward.
He's a good talker. It's when it comes to actually doing anything where everything falls apart. Good talker.
Okay, so
I think he'd know how to do it if he were building a golf course.
Okay,
but this is something that he apparently doesn't want to do as much as build a golf course in Scotland. Boy, there were a lot of objections to that golf course, lots of lawsuits over that, and somehow it got done. And if he really wanted to, he could get it done.
Ann Coulter's with me. Resistance is Futile is her latest book, though I would read Adios America. I think that's the one that if you only could pick up one, I'd pick up them all. In Trump We Trust, too, just mostly for fun. Let's do a little bit more. Let's take a quick break, and we'll do 10 more minutes with Ann Coulter when we return. Back to work with Ann Coulter here, author of many best-selling books and a great column that appears every Wednesday at Breitbart News as well. And Ann's very fired up, and a little on the negative side today, we can say, but this is such an important challenge for this audience who does, I do believe, desperately want everything to turn out okay. And I just don't think we are. I think the left has played a much longer game than the right on this one. I think if you want to be a 3D chess player, and let me bring Ann back in here, and let's start with how the left basically took over our education system. So people don't even understand why you would want to defend in America, why a border matters, why sovereignty matters, why America is an exceptional country. All of this stuff is anathema to people my age and younger. And that's the problem I hear, is that people don't know why these things matter. We've done such a horrible job of communicating these sort of first principles to our younger generation. And this was totally by design. And the chickens are coming home to roost here.
Well, after immigration, I would have turned to education next. I don't think it's quite as dire. other than the immigration angle to it. For one thing, young people are lazy and don't vote. I mean, my whole life, Democrats have been swearing by the youth vote, and we have the youngsters coming out. The only one who ever really, at least in a presidential election, who really took advantage of or won in part because of the youth vote was Ronald Reagan. And the other thing that is often deceptive about these demographics, where you're thinking of it as the old America, the youth vote is what, at this point in many states, I mean, overwhelmingly in places like California, is already majority minority. So it's not so much that you're talking about young people per se, you're talking about the advance wave of the third world immigrant takeover of America. They tend to be, I mean, in the schools in Texas and California, overwhelmingly immigrant minority in the younger generations. For Romney, and definitely Romney, and I think I looked this up for Trump too, white kids in the youngest age cohort voted for Romney. You just forget.
I've forgotten that. I've forgotten that.
There aren't that many white kids anymore.
And so let's talk about if you or someone who sees eye to eye with you was in charge of Homeland Security. Give me your first couple of moves you would make right away.
Start building the wall. That was his campaign promise. He doesn't need anyone's approval. And as I describe in the book In Trump We Trust, I mean, the reason that book, maybe it's just sad now, but it's fun, and I wish someone who works for Trump would read it. The campaign was brilliant. I would do nothing differently because there was no one else saying what Trump was saying. We've been waiting for someone to come along for 20 years to put Americans first on trade, on immigration, on everything. We've been waiting for any presidential candidate to do that. Not only did Trump do that, but his issues, I mean, maybe it was just an accident, but his issues were brilliantly chosen. Every one of his major promises he does not need Congress for, other than repealing Obamacare. Yeah, you need, or changing Obamacare, giving us good health care. Yeah, you have to change the law on that. Everything else is 100% within the discretion, within the power, the authority, the constitutional assigned rights of the President of the United States. Building the wall, deporting illegals, enforcing immigration law. I mean, these are immigration laws that have been on the books for decades, banged out with conservatives and Democrats negotiating with one another, thinking, conferring. They passed the law. Various presidents of various political parties have signed to these laws just to enforce the laws on the books, like deporting illegals and not going around calling them incredible kids. They're incredible kids.
By the way, Ann, did you notice that we had the actual first illegal alien Rhodes Scholar? Because we always joke that all illegal aliens are portrayed as Rhodes Scholars. We had the first DACA Rhodes Scholar, and it was a South Korean immigrant.
Well, I've been noticing this. Liberals have a problem with cause and effect. They do it in the reverse way with their hysteria over the school-to-prison pipeline,
right,
where their argument is, hey, look, we happen to have noticed that all these kids in high school who get suspended and referred for criminal prosecution because they commit crimes, they grow up and they keep committing crimes, and then they end up in prison. So our solution is, let's just not report their crimes when they're in school, because we find kids who don't have crimes reported do much better. No. I think you're confusing cause and effect here. It's not that the crime doesn't get reported. It's that the crime did not occur. And I'm noticing the same thing with this just frenetic promotion of immigrants to this or that position, immigrants or I suppose minorities, women, all of the special victim groups. There was another one recently. And again, these may be fabulous people, they may be brilliant, but there was an item in the New York Times, I know it was, the first black woman is going to be the editor-in-chief of the Harvard Crimson. And the New York Times, so that's great. Again, she could be fantastic. I know nothing about her. But the New York Times promotion of this was, editors of the Harvard Crimson have gone on to be tech billionaires, presidents of the United States. Well, okay, but we know you practice affirmative action. So if you're practicing affirmative action, it's not like being the editor is what makes you president or a tech billionaire. It's that in a merit-based system, someone who gets that job is likely to be a tech billionaire or the president. But if you're going to get rid of a merit-based system and start looking at things like gender identity, race, country of origin, well, then you're looking at other things that don't necessarily make you presidential material.
So one thing that I've also noticed here with this ongoing debate is that the media tends to frame it as they'll find the one mother with two children out of a group of hundreds, and they'll make that the face of it, when we know it's the majority are kind of young men, a lot of them prone to violence. Most of them want to work. And a lot of them might very well, and I'll say this caveat, a lot of them might be great individuals. But the problem is, Ian, is the true story is of a cartel network that is going all the way down into Central America,
right,
and South America even. They paid off huge portions of the Mexican government, and they're networking people all the way into not just human smuggling, which is sex trafficking, but the opioids that are coming through. It's a huge network that goes into America's Midwest and our heartland. And yet the face of it will be one mother with two children. And the media does this. And then we're the ones who are called racist if we want to point out that, hello, these people don't care about the migrants. The people who are sponsoring these cartels, they don't care about the migrants. They care about their business.
No, you're absolutely right. As Judge Richard Posner wrote, and he is far from a conservative judge, very smart though, most cited federal judge. This is a case cited in Adios America, and you've probably seen it elsewhere. He concurred in a case, an immigration case, specifically to demand that he said Congress, it could also be an executive order, end the practice of anchor babies. Both he and Harry Reid, also very much not a conservative, have pointed out that the lure of coming in and getting the free health care and the housing and the food benefits and, better jobs too, and the lure of dropping a baby here, you're in the law it's called an attractive nuisance. You can't have, a wide open swimming pool with no fences because little kids are going to be naturally attracted to it, and then they'll jump in and they'll drown. It's your responsibility not to have an attractive nuisance. It's our responsibility not to lure pregnant women to walk through thousands of miles of desert and be set upon by cartels and have to pay coyotes. But you're right. The left doesn't care about that. They just hate America. They just want to wreck America. And yes, the media are horrible liars. You remind me of something else that just I find enraging about Trump not fulfilling his promises. People weren't falling for it. They weren't falling for the lies of the media. Americans are, without question, the most compassionate, generous people the world has ever known.
That's right.
But our compassion is tapped out. And if you keep having, a beggar come knock on your door every night, and every time, he gets in, he brings in, his 20 gypsy relatives and wrecks the place, at some point, when the sad woman comes knocking at the door, you stop opening the door. That's the point where Americans were in 2016. They didn't care that they were being called deplorables. They didn't care that they were being called racist and bigots. They came out and they voted for Trump, and then he betrayed them.
Yeah, and we talked about this a little bit on yesterday's broadcast where there was a guy, and I don't mean to embarrass the guy, but he was a high-ranking border guy who was talking about how you can use pepper spray and you can, eat it because you could put on nachos, which is why did he choose nachos, by the way? And I was thinking, Ian, about shouldn't the message actually be, the problem is that if you do bring your kids to the border and they are put in the front of the line in order to create some sort of optics for these evil cartels, then there's a chance that they're going to get injured. And we don't want that to happen. So please don't bring your kids. How come that's not the message, which is that this is going to be, there's going to be casualties because people are attacking our personnel who are trying to enforce our laws. So please don't put us in this position. We definitely don't want to pepper spray children. That's not the goal, but they are being pawns in this big globalist game for open borders, and we need to defend ourselves. And so please prevent us from even having that as an option by staying home and seeking asylum in Mexico.
Well, the way you do that, Alex, is by building a wall.
What? A wall? Hold on. Let me write this down. I'm calling it the Coulter wall from now on. I'm not calling it the Trump wall. It's too late. It's too late. He's relinquished that opportunity. Ann Coulter, the author of many great books, a great column every Wednesday at Breitbart News. Definitely read Resistance is Futile, Adios America, In Trump We Trust, and others. And any final comments for this interview today?
Well, we'll have Perky, our next interview. I'll come up with the fun stuff we can do in the end of America. There will be a lot of grave desecration that we can all participate in.
Well, once we go over the precipice,
the happy part of the end of America. There isn't much, but I'm going to start working on a list of the happy part of the end of America.
Good. We'll need a little balance, but I think the challenge is valid now, and hopefully, and we know folks pay attention to the show from on the inside, that the people are trust me, Ann is prescient here. She's just merely a step ahead of some of the base who is eventually going to wake up and think, this didn't get done. We thought Trump was the exception to the rule. Turns out he wasn't. So why bother?
Yes. This will be the last president, and at this point, I think there is absolutely no chance that he gets reelected.
And I love the way your brain works. It's hilarious and dark at the same time, which is my favorite. I appreciate the time as always on Breitbart News Daily.
Great to talk to you, Alex Marlowe. I saw you at 8 years old in a little bunny costume.
I think that is true. My mom did show that. I'm going to have to tell that story about how I could not get to a dinner and Ann spent the entire time talking to my parents, who were both Breitbart employees. So I'm sure it was good talk.
It was fantastic. I'm going to get that little bunny suit as you and the bunny suit as my screensaver.
I think I was 9, by the way, Ann. But we'll pick up there in our fun conversation next time. We got to worry about our open border for now. Okay, I got to run. I got to pay some bills. Talk to you later, Ann. Thank you.